Okay, yes, I'm sitting in my car. No, I am not driving, even though I have a seatbelt on. No hands on the wheel. I have a little something to talk about today because it's been on my mind a lot lately, and that is, well, let me first preface it by giving you some history on me. So, when I was in high school, I developed an eating disorder. I was anorexic for a time and then bulimic for a long time. I was a cheerleader. I wanted to go to college and cheer in college. My natural inclination for my body is to be heavier scale-wise than I look. I carry a lot more muscle mass. My frame is really solid. And so I was trying to be as tiny on the scale as I possibly could be. So in order to do that, I started starving myself. So I got down to about 103 pounds. And later when I tell you how much I weigh today, that'll give you some perspective. But I was, the lowest I ever was that I know of was 103 pounds. And I then had Braden. When I was pregnant with him, I realized that if I continued doing what I was doing, I would very possibly hurt my pregnancy, hurt my baby, and I decided I couldn't live with that. So I chose to get better, and it took a lot of hard work, lots of counseling, lots of work, but I was pregnant, and so the weight that I gained through recovery didn't really show because I was pregnant. Although in the first 12 weeks I did gain, I think, close to 15 pounds, something like that. Throughout my entire pregnancy, I gained 60 pounds. So I started at about 103, and the day I gave birth, I weighed in at 165. So all that to say, I left the hospital at 136. I then went, I went into, instead of starving myself, I started over exercising, which is pretty common. Actually, it's very common because I see it all the time, even with my healthy clients. So I started doing at least 45 minutes of cardio a day. And then while I was pregnant, I had started lifting. So I was also lifting. I decided to do a fitness competition not very long after Braden was born, and so I started dieting for that, and I was severely restricting my food. So I want to say I was probably eating 1,250 calories immediately after being pregnant. Obviously, my milk supply didn't last very long. I think I breastfed for about 5 months, and then I stopped breastfeeding because keeping up my milk supply was not working. Yeah, because I wasn't eating enough. But I did compete. Braden was just over a year old the first time I competed, and I was only 21, 22. I think I was 22. And then I quit competing after that. Bikini wasn't out. I did fitness back then, and it was just too much work. So I was a personal trainer though by that point, and so it was not uncommon for me to go into the gym, do 45 minutes on the stair mill, train some clients, work out in the middle of the day, train a couple more clients, and then do about 30 minutes or so cardio before I left the gym. Then I started competing in bikini in 2009, and the team I competed with, immediately from the get-go, I had an hour of cardio in the morning, an hour of cardio in the evening, and lifting, and pretty high volume lifting, high repetitions, lots of sets, just, balls to the wall. Needless to say, I got in really good shape really fast. But I set myself up for kind of the perfect storm. I competed a ton of times. I've kind of lost count. I'd have to go back and look, but it was over 20 times in the course of like 2.5 years or so. I did a lot of really cool things, but eventually all of that work was just too much for my adrenal system to handle. And I had, metabolic adaptation to my very low calories, probably under 1,000 calories a day by that point. I was running 3 hours a day. And then after that, I obviously had to stop doing what I was doing. If you see pictures of me from at that point, I was about 134 pounds or so, and puffy everywhere. And my face, even like big round face, just, I looked awful. And it was because my hormones were completely out of whack, from estrogen to progesterone to cortisol to epinephrine. All of those were just crazy. My body couldn't handle balancing my salt very well because of the zero sodium diet I had been on for so many years. There was just so many factors at play. So I got better. I competed again. And it even took me, after that, it took me even about another year after I competed in a much healthier way, for my body to calm back down again. So after that, I started doing Orange Theory, and I was still in this mentality that I had to work out every single day. And I was going to school at that point, and just forcing myself to go to the gym was just more effort. And I wanted to reserve that mental space for doing homework. So I started doing Orange Theory, because if you don't come, you lose your session. So that's accountability. And then somebody else is telling you what to do. So I don't really even have to think. I just have to go and do, which is kind of the beauty of having a personal trainer. So I started doing that, and I was doing it 5 days a week. And I was up around maybe 138, and I was working out so hard. I was running, and I was one of the fastest people because my body is just super, super athletic that way. And I was just going balls to the wall every single day. And you'd think that as a trainer and somebody who has like some background in how the body works, that I would know better. But so many of us, a very large percentage of women think more is better when it comes to exercise, and less is better when it comes to food. And I was just in this cycle that, even though I wasn't sick anymore, I wasn't restricting food, I wasn't binging and purging, I wasn't doing any of that, I still wasn't healthy. And I still was really pushing my body to a place where it just wasn't able to ever recover. My hormones weren't able to ever be really very stable. And I would get big swings and big shifts with all sorts of different factors. If my monthly cycle, I'd gain like 4 pounds of water. If I went out and I had a bunch of salt, my body would be like, I don't know what to do with all of this. It wouldn't respond normally. And it wasn't until last fall I took 20 credits at school, which, dear God, never again will I do that. But the positive thing that came out of it was that it forced me to slow down. I had no choice anymore. I had way too much going on at school. I literally could not even get into Orange Theory because my classes were, every time that there was a time I could go to Orange Theory, I had class. So I was only able to get in about twice a week. And so I started doing Orange Theory twice a week, and then I would lift twice a week at the gym. And I found that suddenly my body started to respond. I started to lose scale weight. I started to have an appetite that was more reasonable. I wasn't thinking about food constantly. I wasn't hungry constantly. I didn't crave sugar. I didn't crave fats. It just, when it was time to eat, I knew it was time to eat by my body signals, not because I had uncontrollable urge to eat all the time, which I had dealt with for most of my life. So it wasn't unfamiliar. It wasn't something I wasn't used to dealing with. but the absence of that was such a big difference to me that that's what I noticed. And then winter came around, and I had even less time to work out. And so I really started doing Orange Theory twice a week, and I stopped going to the gym because, again, I had not very much mental energy. So I reserved that mental energy for study and went to Orange Theory and had the accountability, had somebody else telling me what to do. So from about, I want to say like February or March last year, on a consistent basis, I've worked out twice a week. With that, I have started doing intermittent fasting because my body just acts that way. My hunger signals don't kick in until about 11 every day. True intermittent fasting is probably a smaller window, but for me, I start eating around 11 and then I stop eating around 8 p.m. It's not a hard and fast rule. I do try to still stick to macros. I still try to log my food and make sure I'm getting enough and not undercutting myself so I don't see metabolic adaptation too low. But I also try to make sure that, I'm not restricting to the point where I can't have a cookie or I have to say no to a glass of wine. I just make sure that everything is in balance. And I know that I have found that balance because my scale weight today was 130 pounds, which I haven't been 130 pounds exercising twice a week, eating basically whatever sounds good to me in ever of my adult life. So I just wanted to share with you all that it is possible to find that balance. It is possible to get to a place where your hunger signals don't control your life, where your scale weight is perfectly fine and it's not fluctuating huge amounts based off of if you had salt the day before or other seemingly benign factors. It is possible to be in a place where you're not forcing yourself to forego rest in order to try to force the scale to go down. Again, I was 103 pounds at a certain point in my life. I'm 130 right now, and I'll tell you what, I will take 130 over 103 with the mentality that I have now any day.